welcome to Yemu TV, the place where we hang out and inspire each other to learn, love, and live our purpose and passion. Today on Yemu TV, we have a young woman well known all over Africa for her commitment to Pan-Africanism. She is a strategic advisor, global speaker, and management consultant. Lebogang Chaka holds a Master of International Business and a Bachelor of Business and Commerce from Monash University, Australia. She has studied African studies through the University of South Africa to understand the needs of the continent. She recently formed part of the advisory team to Nigeria to launch the Afro Champions Initiative alongside Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, Vice President of Nigeria, Yemi Osinbajo, former President of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, and former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki. She was selected as a finalist for the 2017 Mackenzie Next Women Generation Award. She sits on the African Leadership Academy Student Enterprise Program Advisory Board. She is the inaugural recipient of the Business Women Association of South Africa bursary. She has recently been appointed as a lead representative of Football for Peace to Africa. She founded a company called Afro Visionary Legacy, a boutique management consulting and public speaking firm that focuses on Africa. Lebogang is a committed Pan-African academic activist who has committed to traveling the continent and the world, engaging different people from different walks of life on African issues. Lebo, thank you for joining us today. It is an honor having you on Yemu TV.
Thank you for having me, Yemu.
And so you are doing an amazing work in Africa. How did it all start?
For me, I think it started off with a girl who had a dream of African unity. And it grew because honestly, I started studying African studies. And when I came, face to face with the narrative of the continent and understanding really our history, where we come from and some of the injustices that exist, I then decided that, I cannot do corporate as normal and I cannot do life as normal, that I had to speak. And I realized that I had to speak because so many of us sit and complain, but none of us want to see, so many of us are so used to being victims, but how do we get to a point where we actually start seeing ourselves as victims, as the architects of our own solutions as Africans? So my voice was really inspired by saying to Africans that, yes, we've had a raw deal up to now. And yes, there's so many books that write about the problems around the continent and its people, but how many books are there out there? How many speakers are out there and saying, there's another narrative to this continent. And you as Africans are actually, the ones that can solve your problems. So I'm a firm believer of African solutions for African problems by Africans.
Wow. What an amazing story. And to be honest, I think what you are doing or what you have begun is a movement that is going to go places. And so we are full, behind you, and we want to see this come to pass. And so one might actually want to know if you have always known that's what you were born to do, being a champion for the African narrative.
So I always say that, you're always prepared to where you're going to, whether you realize it or not. And one of my favorite sayings is, you will always become what you're meant to become. And when I look at my life, the fact that I went to a normal South African school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I changed schools and I go to this international school. Mm-hmm. And at that international school, I then start to meet other kids from other African countries from a very early age at high school level. So my mind starts to change and I start to see that, so we exist in a continent And then I fast forward, go to university, and I end up at Monash University in South Africa, where 10% of us are South African. Then I go to Australia and to live there for 2 years and become part of the African diaspora.
Wow.
So you can see that all these steps that I took in my life prepared me for where I was supposed to be. Um, my love for my continent, my love for my people, my love for the African diaspora was crafted. And I find myself being drawn to this United Africa because from a very early age, when I was at the International School of South Africa, that's what we were. We were United Africa. We didn't care which part of Africa you came from. We were all Africans. And we loved each other. And we had friendships across any country. We had African diaspora children that would come all the way to South Africa for school. So I don't know if I always knew. I don't think so. I think I was prepared though.
Wow, wow. I like the fact that you were prepared and you were ready to grab the opportunity when it was presented to you. Okay, and so, looking at what you're doing and all the experiences that you've been through, who can you say is your biggest inspiration?
Honestly speaking, my biggest inspiration are, it's funny enough, the people that I meet that are actually very, like, I don't know how to put this, but the ones that are truly disadvantaged. I remember I do talks at prisons, right? And I remember the first prisoner that wrote to me and said, come to prison to talk to us. I was like, And I found that imparted more on me than any other audience that I've been in.
Wow.
And I find that I actually enjoy the most being in those underprivileged areas with those underprivileged Africans and actually seeing how they live and how they find their hope in their dire situations. And to listen to the stories of, like, when I was in Zimbabwe, of a young industrialist, George, who Nkosana, who invited me there, and listening to his story and how he's so young. He only turned 29, but he was already an industrialist, manufacturing snacks. And finding offtake agreements to put these in, like, stores. So for me, those are the people that inspire me the most, because equally you need to be able to go down to the people and have your pulse at the people, because then it informs the decisions and the input that you have when you sit at the top. So for me, the people that inspire me are the ones that I meet on my everyday walks.
Wow. And in other words, they are the ones who fuel you, who fuel your
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And so in doing the work that you're doing, what can you say is your dream for Africa and the African youth, to be specific?
I think my dream for Africa is really, I do believe in a united continent. I do believe in the collective power of African nations and African people coming together. And I really want to see, especially this year going forward, how I can contribute also to the narrative of a peaceful Africa. Because if we have a peaceful continent, then we can see opportunities for young women, for women and children in particular, for youth. We can see a continent where people are not afraid to go to the library and study till 12 o'clock because they're not going to be raped. We can see a society where young girls don't get trafficked and so forth. So for me, my hope and my dream is for a peaceful continent, and to really see youth rolling up their sleeves and saying, I am in procurement, for instance, right? And I'm going to make sure that I am the world's best in procurement. So the world is going to come to me for procurement. And as Africans, we are going to set the world agenda in terms of being experts, and really the exploitation of youth to become the intelligence of the world, and saying, you know what I mean? We are going to educate ourselves. It doesn't matter if we are, at the African Leadership Academy, I met this young gentleman who created a backpack with a solar light, so that at night students can come back in Sierra Leone and sit and study with that light. I
Mm.
mean, that's the kind of African youth that I always dream of. One that will say, okay, these are our challenges, but we can become the world's best
Yes, yes.
in whatever field that you are. And I always say to people that it's not about all of us wanting to be speakers, all of us wanting to be politicians, all of us wanting to, be doctors and lawyers. It's about finding your passion
Yes.
and solving that is your passion.
Powerful. I'm listening to you and I'm going, oh wow, I'm having good goosebumps already listening to what you're saying and what you believe as far as Africa is concerned. And so my question to you is, how can people like myself living in the diaspora contribute or positively contribute to the dream that you have of Africa?
I one thing that I really, really loved about the time that I was staying in Australia is the fact that we came together and we supported each other as Africans. It was like there was a silent notion that, if there's an opportunity here, I will call another African. There was the silent thing that if I remember when towards the end of my master's and people wanted to know how to apply for permanent residence. People were already giving you the information whether or not you wanted to stay in Australia or not. I was the opposite. I left afterwards, but some of my African counterparts stayed. And for me, I think the African diaspora, the one thing that they need to do is they need to hold on to each other, share opportunities, and show the world, there's this warm African spirit that we have where it doesn't matter whether I know you or not, I will take care of you. And I think those are some of the value systems that we can take out there to the world to say that, there's warmth, there's love, there's, sharing and caring. And I think in the greater part, I think it is very, very important that we conduct ourselves in such a way that we welcome people home and we tell a narrative, which is true, that there's another side to Africa. I remember there was an advert that I saw on TV when I was traveling in one of these countries, non-African countries, and there was this child who was, had snot, dirty, and this kid was like really, really like, like you just cry, and they're like, and there's this song that said, "Do you see what I see? Do you see what?" And this kid was like carrying this bus, this. Oh, and I thought to myself, yes, that's one narrative, but there's another narrative that we really barely see about the continent. And these are like kids that are, participating in geek challenges. The other day I was invited as kids were coding, primary school kids were coding. Those are the stories that we need to tell, that, we have the capability to contribute to the IT revolution. We have the capabilities to lead the fourth industrial revolution. And I think it is the diaspora in the language that they can also carry this flag. Don't just see the ambassador of your country sitting in the high consulate somewhere as the only mouthpiece for the continent. See yourself as the mouthpiece of the continent. Share the good stories that we have, change the narratives so that when people come, so that you can also invite investment back home, because then as people invest on the continent, then we start to see the continent also industrializing, we start to see jobs happening and so forth, and we start to see tourism also. I mean, a lot of people, for instance, my African counterparts, when I tell them that South Africa's medical tourism is actually quite high, they don't even know that. They go to other countries outside of the continent for medical reasons, and I'm not saying that that should be the case. We should develop our own in our own countries, but I'm just saying that we need to know those kind of things as Africans and tell those stories.
Beautiful. I totally agree with you there, where we need, as Africans, we need to rise up, begin to collaborate, work together, and help one another to tell the story that we want to tell. We have the potential to do it. We have the resources, human resources. We have, I think, the highest number of young people right now in the world. So we have young people who are still full of energy, who can champion our cause. And we, as diasporans who are living outside of Africa, we have learned a lot from living here. And I believe that all these experiences, we can take them home and contribute to the story or to the narrative that we want to see for Africa.
Mm. I
Beautiful.
totally agree.
Mm, 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 mm. All right, and I know you're rushing to your next meeting, so we have to keep it short. Hopefully, we'll be able to have you again, back again on the program, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more. But what I want is to understand. I know you mentioned that for this year, your focus is on ensuring that we are working towards a peaceful Africa. And so, how exactly are you planning on ensuring that this year is not going to be wasted, but you are going to achieve that you have set out to achieve?
So last year I was involved in shaping some peace and security programs.
Mm, mm,
Um, and I am praying that the grants get, given and that we can actually implement the programs. But for me, it's not even a matter of waiting for grants. There also other ways that I can do that in terms of like even the role that I've accepted for Football for Peace,
mm,
using really football as a narrative, as a narrative for the continent to say, this is how we're going to use it. The Football for Peace, the way it's structured is that we have football peace matches
mhm,
where we can use football as a diplomacy tool. We also have peace cities. We launched London as a peace city last year. So we're going to also look at the African continent as to where do we launch these peace cities, where we go into high schools and really teach children in terms of peace, in terms of diversity, some of the things that we're planning on targeting are things like tribalism,
mhm.
also using soccer as a tool. But also like I said, on a bigger level, there are some programs that I've shaped that I've been part of that will really contribute to the a narrative of peace on the continent on a macro level as well.
Wow, beautiful. We can keep going and we can talk and talk, I know, but I have to let you go because you're going to your next meeting. It's been a pleasure having you on our TV program, and we would love to have more of you. We will hopefully stay in touch. But what would be your last words to the people who are going to be watching this recording afterwards? What words of encouragement do you have for them? And also, if you can let us know how our viewers are able to, or our audience can get in touch with you if they need to find out more information about the work that you do, the amazing, I should say, amazing work that you are doing, and how they can help to
Mm.
advance the cause.
So one of my I love proverbs. I live by African proverbs. They give
Oh
me
yeah.
strength. And and one of my favorite proverbs is he who fears the sun will not become chief.
Mm, mm,
And for me, it says that even though I'm on this journey and it looks like I'm doing all these things, the sun burns, you
yes.
know. And I want to tell every young person, whether male, whether female, that it will burn when you start to chase your dreams. You
Mm,
will start to see. You'll start to see and be challenged in various ways. But what I'm saying is, don't give up. Don't fear that sun, no matter what it is. Chase your
mm,
dream, chase your vision,
mm,
and chase impact. Money will come.
yes.
Chase impact. Money will always come. Though it is not your portion um, to worry about finances and so forth. Chase your passion, chase impact, and you will see the world will come to you. And then if you want to get a hold of me, you can email my team on info@afrovisionary.com, or bookings at afrovisionary.com. Otherwise, you can follow me on Facebook under my name, Lebogang Chaka. On Instagram, it's also Lebogang Chaka. I think my Twitter account is lady_Lebo. And on LinkedIn, Lebogang Chaka.
Lebo, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.